I am singularly honored to have been invited by Rotary District 3300 to deliver the keynote address marking its 78th annual conference. We know that Rotary brings together leaders from all walks of life to provide services with very high ethical standards in accordance with the organization's credo of service above self. We also know that these services help contribute towards the building of peace and goodwill across the world. We never tire of admiring Rotary for the movement's exemplary arrangement to draw Rotarians from all walks of life, enterprise, public service, the professions and politics. Given that Rotarians are leaders in their own right, I thought therefore it is apt if I were to spend some time and share with you my thoughts on leadership. I seek your indulgence, ladies and gentlemen, to take a slight detour and step back to a month ago yesterday. On the 7th of November, leadership, or rather quintessential quality of leadership, was virtually defined on television, much to the admiration of the world. For long stretches of time on that day, a particular 24-hour satellite news channel repeatedly aired two news clips showing the reactions of two presidential candidates in a just concluded election for the head of government in a mature democracy across the Atlantic. One clip showed that the victor's magnanimity in embracing his opponent. This could, in a manner, help to close whatever chasm and divide that had developed across the differing political sides in the aftermath of the hustings. Any politician seasoned enough with the ways of elections could tell us that such a chasm is potentially cancerous and could, if not properly attended to, fester into a permanent scar, damaging to the nation. This could very well have been the case had the victor not held out his hand in a symbolic gesture to register his intent to dress the wound of defeat suffered by the loser. The other, a clip on the vanquished. It registered the loser ever so gracious in offering his congratulations and good wishes to the winner after the people had made known their choice. Cynics would have us believe that on show was the handiwork of professional image makers designed to create a mirage of civility to hide the gloating and the disappointment across the two political sides. But the truth comes across as more sincere and thus the poignant scenes that I had drawn your attention to. But what is a good leader? One might ask. Management primers will give us any number of views on good leadership. However, for me, a good leader is one who is honest, hardworking, and efficient. These qualities must be enhanced further by the moral character of the person in adhering to the highest ethical standards in whatever he or she does, while at the same time being a person of absolute integrity. Such a leader, as described, will automatically be looked up to by the followers, for he or she will not fail to command their respect. Good leadership must necessarily bring about and put into place good governance, much welcomed and accepted by the people. And the hallmark of good governance is transparency in the execution of power by the administration of the day. It is also true that the business of politics is to gain power, and having got the power, politicians will fight tooth and nail to retain it, possibly permanently. Towards this end, a leader tends to amass power, and unbridled power tends to come in the way of good leadership. An overly strong leader could be drowned in euphoria, and should this happen, it could spell trouble and be the beginning of the breakdown of good governance. It is not unusual for such a breakdown to be followed by the start of politics of patronage by the party in power. Once this happens, you can be sure that the practice of corruption would not be far behind. And it has been said time and again that no society can be completely free of corruption, that corruption is the means providing the wherewithal in lubricating the mechanism, helping the world go round. It is often thought that an administration is considered to be relatively clean by the way it mitigates corruption to its barest minimum. The danger in this thinking is that the thin line of acceptability is very blurry, and that corruption is cancerous in nature. It has a nasty habit of morphing into a part of everyday life. It is at this juncture that the practice could be viewed as part of a society's culture. It is at this point that corruption becomes part of the way we do things. Given its cancerous nature, it is at this point that the public services would tend to develop inertia. Inefficiency rears its head, and they become political powers unto themselves. In doing so, a political nature is compromised, and its role as policy implementer tarnished. The rearing of corruption's ugly head is a blight infecting many third world and emerging economies. And the sad thing is that Malaysia is not averse to it, regardless of the denial that we have been spouting about on the surface of things. The question to ask, I think, is where do we go from here? How do we proceed, given the highly emotive nature of the issue? Have we been effective at all in combating corruption? Whether we like it or not, our success in fighting corruption will have to be measured against the number of charges preferred against the perpetrators. I believe this approach will convince the public of MACC's or Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission's professionalism and independence in tackling the scourge without fear or favor. There is no doubt that MACC has done a good job, but the popular view is that the body suffers from a less than positive perception. In the mind of the public, the body, rightly or wrongly, is seen to pursue corruption on a selective basis. The public seems to think that charges that matter are not preferred. This credibility gap helps to confirm the public's disbelief in MACC's independence. Worse, the popular belief, albeit unspoken and untrue, is that the MACC is beholden to the executive. As a comparison, Hong Kong's ICAC, or Independent Commission Against Corruption, prosecuted an average of 386 persons a year during a 33-year period from 1974, the year that body came into being, to 2007. As a result, the ICAC enjoys very high credibility among Hong Kong people. The MACC is by no means the only body suffering negative perception. There seems to be a general belief that the Election Commission here is not quite independent in carrying out its tasks. The Commission has been so badly politicized that we seem to forget that it is a constitutional body appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong upon consultation with the Conference of Rulers, as provided for under Article 114 of the Federal Constitution. This fact has been conveniently forgotten in the frenzy of politicking. Perhaps it is time everybody took a breather and allowed the Election Commission to operate at an arm's length to all parties, thereby allowing it to recoup its delicate credibility. I am concerned about the dignity and credibility of public institutions such as the ones just mentioned. Concerned because we are measured partly by how they fare. Therefore, these bodies must be able to deliver their services without being doubted by the public. For this to happen, their image must be in good order. Apart from ensuring that these public bodies carry out their tasks without interference, we must also protect members of the public who come forward to volunteer information on alleged wrongdoings. This will be consistent with the idea of good governance. The practice of shooting the messenger to mitigate the embarrassment from such a disclosure is neither right nor honorable and should cease forthwith. In this regard, we must stop the practice of using, say, an act meant to protect state secrets from being circulated against anyone who brings the attention of the public to a scandalous wrongdoing. Specifically, it is time we seriously thought about repealing the Official Secrets Act. At the very least, the OSA should be reviewed. Its existence is akin to having the sword of Damocles swinging above the people's necks that instill fear into them. In particular, the provision for incarceration for those guilty of contravening the Act must be done away with in the name of justice and in order for the authority to be seen to be just. The public must be protected by an act of law against prosecution in its effort to have access to information, even if that piece of information embarrasses the government of the day. Only in this way could transparency and good governance be exercised and excesses in the action of the authority be checked and eliminated. There has been admiration among Malaysians for the way South Africa went about its business of healing the wound, the pain, and the anguish brought about by the practice of the apartheid policy. That country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission was very successful in addressing and making good on the atrocities brought about by the much loathed systematic segregation of its African nationals. A good part of that success was greatly due to the Republic's leader of the day, President Nelson Mandela, who was very statesmanlike in not seeking vengeance for the pains and psychological sufferings of black South Africans. Rather, he showed himself to be a dignified statesman in focusing on uniting the country divided by the color of the people's skin. He used sports successfully to bridge the racial divide. In particular, black sportsmen who were encouraged to take up rugby, a sport synonymous with the country's white minority. This non-violent approach was so successful that before long, a good number of black rugby players represented their country as members of the world-renowned Springbok. Undoubtedly, this non-violent leadership style has been well tested and applied by great leaders throughout history. For instance, Islam's Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, having moved to Medina to avoid continued flashpoints with the Meccan non-believers, was able to convince the Meccans through peaceful means the righteousness of the beliefs he was divinely enjoined to preach upon his return to the holy city of his birth. As was the case with Gandhi Satyagraha and his salt march from Ahmedabad to Dundee to protest the tax on salt, which marked his passive resistance to free India from British colonial rule. Having seen how effective the Truth and Reconciliation Commission had been to South Africa in bringing that country together without any incrimination, many quarters in Malaysia think that there is merit in having such a body because it would help us address the issue of good governance by discovering the truth about the prevailing state of corruption, the extent of its practice, and how to eliminate it as a way of life. The body must have the status of a court of law with the requisite judicial power so that it has enough bite. Such a commission must be able to provide amnesty to those who used corrupt means and abused their positions while in power to amass wealth. Upon coming into force, the Commission could, for instance, declare a grace period of, say, 6 or 12 months, or such other reasonable period, to allow abusers to come clean and make amends for their misdeeds. During this moratorium, no action will be taken against them. However, if it is subsequently determined that the declarant had not been truthful, then he would be pursued, and the full extent of the law would be applied against him. A corrupt person taking advantage of this amnesty would be required to go through a rehabilitation program. He, and this includes both the taker and the giver, would also be required to declare that he would not practice corruption again and express regret for having indulged in it in the first place. The rehabilitation and the cash and the oath might sound drastic, but they are not so in the context of the corrosive effect of corruption on the national economy and on the moral fiber of the country. Given corruption's endemic nature of late, the prescription for the permanent elimination is completely justified. Ladies and gentlemen, I have, in the final several minutes, shared with you my thoughts on the debilitating scourge that has come to inflict our beloved land. I have no doubt that as Rotarians, you feel very much the same about corruption, for the practice must surely be anathema to your credo and core belief. It is therefore my earnest hope that this disease be given serious thought so that it would continue to be given due weightage it thoroughly deserves, and in the process, a permanent solution for its elimination found. I take this opportunity to congratulate you, District Governor Mansur Saad, and members of the organizing committee for having organized this conference in the most professional manner, and wish you all the success you so richly deserve. Thank you and good morning.